All right. It looks, according to YouTube, like we are live. Tom, this is the first time you've ever done a live broadcast of Two Hoax Are Better Than One. How are you feeling?
This is the first time I've done a live broadcast of anything ever. Damian Newell is asking, is this starting?
Well, I
It
think
says 126 start time, Rick.
that's right. Since we have a viewer, we can now ask if we have started and everybody can hear us on the YouTubes.
The one viewer. Is this a thing? Are you hearing this thing?
Well, I'm a technical lawyer, but I'm still a lawyer, so I do try to get these things done as easily as possible. But provided on the assumption that we are now broadcasting to the world, and hopefully somebody will confirm that to us. Yes. Hi. Okay. People are talking. Excellent. This is Two Hoags Are Better Than One. The can I still call this a monthly show? It's occasional. It's occasional show. We're gonna try to get this a little bit more
We're trying to
monthly.
put some regularity.
Some regularity, in which Rick Hoeg, managing member of the Hoeg Law business law firm of Northville, Michigan, is not doing a virtual legality episode today, but is instead talking video games, talking pop culture, talking fun stuff with his brother, Tom Hoeg, of, where do you work now, Tom? It's some video game company, right?
I'm still with. Oh yeah. Oh, I have to do a disclaimer, right?
Oh, yeah, we'll do all the disclaimers.
I work for Hyman Studios, which is a subsidiary of Activision. I currently work on the Call of Duty franchise. And I think that's it. All the opinions expressed are mine and not Activision's. I think that's it.
Well, and if people follow virtual legality, they know that corporations don't actually have opinions. They are, sociological constructs built only for profit.
So
But
did you
that's
say you're going to be putting stuff on the video?
Oh yeah, you want me to show you what I got planned here? It's very high tech.
Well, I gotta skip this Trump ad. Hold on. Okay, now I muted it so I can react to the stuff that you put up.
Oh, okay, I see. You've muted the Trump ad. I'm sure a Bloomberg ad will pop up at any moment. But
How is Temtem, Terrence? I hear good things.
oh, okay, yeah, just jump in. Uh, yeah, we'll talk about Temtem in just a second. Yeah, I was going to show you that this is basically what I had planned. I don't know exactly how long the delay will be here, but I also am not sure exactly how much and how often I can do it because I'm going to be guessing at what you want to talk about. So we'll see. But either way, yeah, I'm going to pop up various things if I can do it while you're talking. And hopefully add just a little bit more visual flair to our podcast. You can see I have a background video, so we're already improving, monumentally in our production values here at Hoeg Law.
This
But
like
yeah,
swirly thing.
yeah, a swirly thing indeed. But yeah, so what are you laughing about?
I'm laughing at the chat.
Oh, okay. All right. So, chat, my brother is not a regular streamer. He's not a regular stream follower. He might be distracted. So, if you make him laugh, I can't be held responsible for what he says or what he doesn't say. But he gave the disclaimer about Activision. If law comes up, I'll give the disclaimer. This isn't legal advice. Don't take this as counsel. But I don't think we're going to talk much about law on this. In truth, ordinarily we organize these a little bit more. Both Tom and I had some time today to actually talk. So this isn't terribly organized. This is essentially just going to be chatting about what we play and what we like. I've pulled up the picture of Doom because while I was getting this all set up, then yeah, this is yeah, no Hoglaw website screenshot. This is just going to be us chatting. So I pulled up the picture of Doom because Tom was playing Doom while we got set up. I presume as a prelude to Doom Eternal. Is that an accurate kind of statement, Tom?
Sort of. So I played too much Destiny during the last season, and basically to the exclusion of pretty much everything else. And so I'm kind of on a Destiny break, and so I'm finishing all these games that I have like partially finished. I finished Prey. I finished something else that I can't remember right now. I'm
Oh,
working my way through Doom.
left an indelible imprint on you.
But I love the 2016 iteration of Doom. I think that it's just crazy intelligent in a lot of ways. Hyper violent, so I can understand why that's a turnoff to some people. I think it's partially a turnoff to me, but regardless, a very well done game, and so I'm loving it. It's I was saying earlier the term that we use is Pantheon level,
term that you and I use. This
Yeah,
isn't
this
like
is
used at
literally
High
us.
Moon or anything.
I've never heard anyone else use this term. But basically, my imagining is like if you went to the Hall of the Gods and you had games on like plinths.
Plinths, good word.
This is the kind of games that would be there, like sort of hovering. They just seem to get everything right. They just kind of like pull everything together in some way that is fantastic. And I feel like Doom manages to do that in a crazy cool way. And yes, I had watched the trailer for Eternal, and so I was like, oh yeah, that's a game.
Yeah, it is a game, in fact. And don't worry about all of those things. I will edit them out before we put this up. This isn't live to anybody at all. You can make any kind of mouth movements that you want, buddy.
Nope. It's just, my brain, my brain and my mouth are not in perfect sync. It's fine.
We mostly do this okay. It's not like we're doing 100 edits a video, so I think this will work just fine. But yeah, I love Doom 2. It's very funny. Doom 2016, I think it is a funny one to me because, as I think we've talked about in THABTOs before, I'm the hype guy. You're not the hype person. And I had followed enough of this when it was being made in 2016. They had to go back to the drawing board a couple times to be really concerned about whether this particular project was going to be any good. And I think when it came out, actually, I think just before it came out, there was maybe a beta or an early access period for the multiplayer. And I think a lot of people were really not terribly enthused when they saw that multiplayer, and I don't think that actually was ever a very good part of Doom 2016. If you're in the chat and you love Doom 2016, the multiplayer, I apologize in advance. But we got to see that, and I was not excited about the new iteration of Doom. And then it actually came out, and I think both you and I played it pretty early on and were just gushing about how much we enjoyed it because it's so different. I think if you get used to Call of Duty or you get used to some of these corridor shooters, you're used to a certain type of play, and Doom really does harken back to the old school. You're in a series of big boxes and you have to negotiate them and run around a lot. And Doom 2016, I think we usually call it rocket skates or skateboard park or things like that, where if you're not moving, you're dying. And it creates a lot of flow and a lot of interest in a way that I don't think I usually find in my first-person shooters.
Yeah, when I was playing it, I was actually hearkening it to the old. I don't think that wording actually works. The old God of Wars.
You're too self-conscious. I hit the live button, and you're really self-conscious.
Change that. In that you kind of have these arenas, these fights that are set up, that are kind of self-contained. You do them, and then there's an exploration bit, potentially solving a puzzle, and then another arena with kind of a different flavor, and it feels a lot like that.
Yeah. So you're just kind of getting back in touch with Doom, getting back in the field for it, because as you probably saw on social media or elsewhere, there was clearly an embargo that lifted because I think my Twitter stream was like 100 different gaming sources all releasing their impressions of Doom Eternal all at once. Or I think it's the first 3 hours of Doom Eternal. Yeah.
I actually haven't seen that.
Oh, okay. They dropped it all this week.
The anti-hype guy, someone put the trailer in a chat at work, and I watched that. It was like, cool.
Looks decent.
And I was like, I wonder how Doom 2016 ended, because I think this is a direct continuation, and I don't know.
You've never finished it?
No, I'm working on it now. Chat, please don't tell me.
Oh, but okay.
If you do, it's Doom. It's not.
Don't spoil it. The demons get to Earth, Tom.
Likening's a much better way to say that. Likening it to God of War as opposed to hearkening.
You can hark the herald, whatever you like. I mean, it's Doom, man. You're fighting demons. It's all good. So that happened. And speaking of hype and anti-hype, I think it's probably a good time to chat about what has been the story of video games really here in January 2020, which is, are you looking forward to anything? Because it just got delayed.
Yeah, it's funny. I heard about that too, but I just don't follow this stuff. Like, I wait till it's out and then I play it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Cyberpunk, which I know is one of the ones that got pushed. And I think that's not to anyone's substantial surprise, since they've shown so little of it. So That doesn't surprise me. What were some of the other big ones that you were waiting on that got pushed?
Well, there's mine, which is Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's what I'm really excited about.
Oh,
So,
I saw your tweet about that.
what did I tweet about Final Fantasy VII
You
Remake?
tweeted in reference to the Easy Allies bet that you were correct that the release date was not announced because it is not the actual release date.
Yes. Well, and I was right about that entire bet. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Easy Allies, absolutely check them out. I love them. Hoeglaw was a sponsor of them for 2+ years until a number of things happened in the life of the law firm, as well as the life of the Easy Allies, that led us to not be sponsoring them anymore. But they're going to get some more corporate sponsorships, so be ready for Trailer Jones to be talking about Casper mattresses or whatever it might be. But yeah, I had a video on the official Hoeglaw law firm video channel that talked about their gratuitous and abusive use of language in respect of their betting special on E3. So Easy Allies puts bets down about what's going to happen at E3, and one specific bet was, would Final Fantasy VII announce a release date? And there was some stuff there. They said it wouldn't announce it. It wouldn't count as an announcement if it was announced at the concert, because Final Fantasy VII and Square was having a concert. That is where the release date was announced, and then they changed their minds afterwards. So, yeah, of course, as a lawyer with a YouTube channel, what did I do? I had a long-form 35-minute video explaining the contractual breach that had occurred and explaining that they were in violation of their own good faith betting language. And then, of course, I tweeted when it actually wasn't even the date that was announced at the concert that there was never an accurate depiction of the real release date at E3 2019, as a lawyer is wont to do, at least one who loves video games. And that's what Tom has to add about that. As you can see, a small snicker, and we press on. Well, the other thing that got moved from Square was the Avengers, right?
Oh, yeah,
So,
I heard about that one too.
okay.
That project has seemed troubled, so I haven't super followed it.
I don't know that it's troubled. It's just not what people were kind of expecting, I think, at the outset. So, you know, is the Avengers going to be something that you personally are looking forward to?
I honestly don't know enough about it. I mean, yes, in terms of I like that property.
Yeah.
I like Square Enix well enough, but I don't know enough about the project to know if they, did a good service or not. No, look, there's it's getting bigger.
Oh, yeah. We're working on this, all right? I'm going to work on this. When we get this actually planned, I'll be able to have these all ready to go. But I just thought I would see if I could move these around and put them up as they happen.
So you just have like a field somewhere on your computer where you're just going to like put stuff and then it shows up?
Yeah, I'm just grabbing things and putting them. This is what I was figuring out before we started here, is I wanted to do a broadcast with some production values. So, what could be more production value than a picture of digital Keanu Reeves? I mean, that's really all that it's about, isn't it? What did they say? He's a beautiful man. What did they say at E3? It was some ridiculous statement. But yeah, so it was Avengers, Final Fantasy VII, Cyberpunk, some other stuff. I think Iron Man VR. I think Dying Light Part 2 got delayed, and then here's an interesting bit of language, right? Here's as a pedant, something that I like. So Dying Light 2 gets delayed, and it doesn't have a new release date that's ascribed to it, right? So Dying Light 2 is then described in various periodicals online as being delayed indefinitely. Do you
Right.
think that is an accurate depiction of what has happened, or does it have too much of a negative connotation?
Unfortunately, I feel like indefinite does have too much of a connotation now that means forever, which is specifically not what it means. But people have used it in that way so much it's delayed forever.
Right.
As opposed to it has delayed to an indefinite date. We don't know when it is going to release.
Well, then let me ask your thoughts on this from maybe a business perspective. Obviously, you're not the one making these calls, so Activision, you don't have to yell at me or put a copyright strike or anything on my video. But do you think then that even if Dying Light 2 or whatever video game, doesn't exactly know when it's going to hit, do they have to put some date on to avoid those kinds of headlines? Just, 2020.
Yeah. You could put, you could literally put a year. I think you can even kind of like couch it with like expected or arriving or something like that. to kind of like really be like, this is the soft guess. And then when you put a year on, people are like, yeah, whatever.
Right. Well, you and I both put it in the bucket of, well, that's an eon away, especially if it's not current year. And so we'll think about it when it's closer to happening. I wasn't even, to be honest with you, I never felt like Cyberpunk was going to hit in April. Maybe that's just my cynicism, but that was never kind of marked down as something I was going to be playing this spring in my head. Yep. So that delay didn't bother me as much as the Final Fantasy delay, where I said, no, that was the March game. Now it's an April game, and now I don't even know what to do.
My friend said that he was actually totally cool with the Cyberpunk getting pushed because the Witcher Netflix series had made him start playing The Witcher 3 again. So that'll give him time to finish that particular run.
I love these. I love these segues. It's going to take me a minute to find a Witcher 3 photo.
I need a Witcher image.
Yeah, I need a Witcher image. I'll just start creating a folder of things I can drag in here.
Just random stuff, memes.
But yeah, if we haven't talked about it in THABTO before, Witcher 3 might be my number one game of all time.
Yeah,
right?
I thought that you might say that. And that's so funny because it's a game I've barely played.
Yeah,
and would probably enjoy.
Yeah, explain this to me. Why? How did we get to a place where your brother, who mostly, we don't agree on everything, but we kind of trust each other's judgment on these things, has played Witcher 3. I'm now in my third playthrough, playing the Switcher on the Nintendo Switch, and which, by the way, is great, and it's awesome that it's mobile. Its performance does suggest that all the rumors about a Switch Pro are true, because I don't think it was actually built to look quite like it looks. So my bet is that it can upgrade a little bit for a Switch Pro, but that's neither here nor there. How is it that you have decided, I'm just not going to play that game?
So I think in my younger days.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think this has changed, which is I think Witcher 3 is kind of on my radar as something I'm going to play.
Okay.
That basically I needed a certain level of action or not too much narrative in a given play session.
Well, that is
my play sessions were limited, and I wanted to get some what I would call play. And I know that the actual Witcher is primarily like a talking RPG that has combat that is decent, serviceable. That's generally like what people say. And it's actually more about preparation, even in terms of like being prepared for the combat, knowing the guy you're going to watch or fight, what his weaknesses are, all that stuff. So any game that's had so I'm a person who would basically get to a town in an RPG and kind of groan because it'd be like, I'm gonna have to talk to everybody and get all the quests, and that's partially my own completionism, which is literally I have to talk to like every person and make sure I got every quest, which is probably wrong. But as I'm sort of going through this sort of revising how I'm going to play games, or mostly just stepping back from Destiny, I'm thinking, if I had a cool, effectively Witcher episode that I played that didn't even potentially involve combat, that was just like the prologue to the next one, that would be okay with me now. But previous me was like, nope, if I haven't killed something, I haven't played. Whoa, what's going on there?
Yeah. Hey, all right. Look, this is a test run.
Put Geralt's eyes peering into us.
I think our viewers understand that this is a test run and that we are practicing on some of this stuff. So yes, it would be useful if I could figure out how to do those kinds of modifications essentially without broadcasting them, and then just pop them in. But we're working on it. I appreciate you calling it out though, because now everybody can laugh together.
To be fair, I was surprised because it was just like a sword hilt and then eyeball. I was like, what is this?
Fair enough. Well, in any event, I find The Witcher 3, your description of why you didn't play, very, very interesting, because I consider you an analytical, intellectual guy. And you and I have a slightly different kind of feel for video games, because I think it's been the case for our entire lives that I have been okay with basically just playing and talking for long periods of time on end. And that hasn't been the case for you.
Right. Yeah, no, there's times when I've liked it. Well, I think even with Disco Elysium, I started to, if the writing's good, that helps a lot. personally, I think part of it is I don't super like waiting to listen to voice acting if the text is also present. I'm weird in that way. I think like I actually probably prefer the games that can't afford a huge voice acting budget, so I can read it at my own pace.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I have that too sometimes where if you're trying to zip through things, and then I have a weird guilt about clicking through people actually talking. So,
Right.
you know,
I know, right? It's like, oh, someone recorded this and animated it.
they went through an effort, man. They went through an
I'm
effort.
like, but and then sometimes when the voice acting's just not very good, you're like,
Yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, I always talked. I used to say to you sort of narrative density, but I've always been more to the side of games for gameplay than games for narrative
Yeah.
than you are, which is odd given my favorite game is Chrono Trigger. But Chrono Trigger even has one of the best JRPG battle systems in my opinion. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it has a good one. But yeah, I always describe The Witcher 3 as achieving what has always been kind of my dream goal in video games, which is I want a game, and Breath of the Wild does this too to some extent, where you're just a guy or a gal, it makes no difference to me, who's out there in the world and you kind of are fully immersed in the role. So The Witcher obviously has a plot line and has certain things you can do, but mostly Witcher 3 is so big, so broad, so dense, as you say, narrative density, that you can wander your horse into the nearby village and stop at the tavern, at the watering hole, read the bulletin board, have a whole little plot line just like you're in an episode of an adventure TV series. And, you know, that can be your session for an hour and 10 minutes. And like you were just the Witcher there. You didn't advance anything with Nilfgaard or Ciri or the destiny of fates and things like that. You were just the Witcher. And I think because of the character that the Witcher is, which is just kind of a mercenary bounty hunter, and his cynical take on the world. I mean, one of my favorite bits of his character is he's mostly over it every time he talks to anybody. He's kind of got a almost Han Solo type feel to him.
well, I feel he's like he's practically immortal, right? Like at some point, isn't that just how you are? Like, yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
they die
novelty
violently.
no longer exists.
Yeah, they die violently quite a bit. The Witchers do.
Right. I meant they don't die of old age. Yes, they die, or they die of old age at like 200 or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to admit a hole in my Witcher lore here. I'm not sure if they are immortal or just very slowly aging. But yeah, I think that's what I really liked about it, and that's what I continue to like about it. That's why I'm on my third playthrough. Is that it's so big that it almost seems infinite. Like even though I've played it that number of times, I don't really remember every detail, and there's still things that pop up that you haven't seen because it is that big. And I think that's what especially the people that love The Witcher, are excited about with Cyberpunk. Obviously, The Witcher and Cyberpunk as narratives are different. They couldn't be more different in terms of what your background of your world is going to be for these things, right? The high science fiction computer type stuff versus the fantasy. But
I don't know. I actually put sci-fi and fantasy closer than like if they went with like you're a noir detective or like modern day.
Okay.
As being sort of the most different from fantasy, because like sci-fi fantasy, like when you go to a bookstore, can be like kind of lumped together.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And an openness to genre, I think, probably extends to both sides. So that's fair. I guess what I meant is you think of the differences between Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, and that's a different taste bud that you're hitting. So I think people that like The Witcher are excited about Cyberpunk, or at least I am, because of that narrative density, because the notion could be that you could just walk around and do whatever for an hour and a half and just have a cyberpunk little adventure that maybe doesn't advance whatever their total game is. In much the same way that I think some of the really good Bethesda games wind up doing, which is you're just living there. I think The Witcher 3 has the advantage of not being as dumb and as simplistic as the Elder Scrolls like main plot lines. So it still continues to drive, and I'm sure I offended someone there, but I've never been motivated to go through the main plot line of an Elder Scrolls game. So
I finished Oblivion.
You finished Oblivion.
That's the only one.
Just because of the Patrick Stewart narration?
I don't really know. I liked Oblivion. It came at a good time when I had a decent amount of time on my hands. And I feel like Skyrim I think is better in basically every way. I just never like played through it.
I love this chat. First of all, hold on. Is the THABTO a Ghost Rider reference? The only Ghost Rider I know is the old PBS show.
I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, was there a THABTO in the old?
If you Google Thabto,
Yeah.
Out of the, even though it's like a very common thing, like one of the things you'll find is there was an episode of Ghost Rider that I think that was Thabto Ghost Rider is like the most commonly looked up thing.
Really? Well,
yeah. So let's see. We can pull up the wiki. Hey, I can't contribute to your video thing.
No,
but,
you can't.
Yes, there's an episode of Ghost Rider called Thabto, or Two Heads Are Better Than One, as you might expect.
Okay, so there's two things I remember from Ghost Rider. I remember it being a PBS show. I remember it being about a ghost that helped them with kind of literacy questions and like vocabulary. And this is one of the main things that I remember from Ghost Rider is that at some point there was an episode or maybe series of episodes that were teaching them the word infringement. And it was about like copyright infringement for like an FBI warning on a videotape or something along those lines. And obviously, as a lawyer that deals with intellectual property and licensing questions, I do specifically remember them learning about infringement. So no, Freako 809, it wasn't directly a reference to Ghost Rider, but Ghost Rider was a direct reference to intellectual property licensing concerns. So I think it works for us. What?
We definitely watched Ghost Rider.
Together?
I don't know. I probably.
Okay. So
yeah, I responding to Terrence. I worked on. Do I do it in the chat or just talk?
No, just talk. But you have to read the question because you have to assume that people can't see it because we're not broadcasting it.
So Terrence said, "Can we know which Activision games Brother Hoeg worked on?" Out of curiosity.
Sure.
So I've been working with High Moon for about 3 years. I worked on Destiny 2 Forsaken. I worked on the Zombies mode of Black Ops 4, and then I'm working on something else right now.
Wait, you're working on something else right now? That's a weird name for a game. They
actually have me working on things.
That's a weird name for a game.
Now. Coming next year.
That's right. Something else right now. It's good stuff. All right. So so I don't want to ask you what your favorite thing that you're working on is, I guess. But can you tell us maybe one little tidbit that maybe we don't know that you did in like Zombies that you thought was particularly cool?
I'm gonna cheat and go the other direction.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I loved working on Destiny.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
And the Scorn, the combatant race of the Scorn, were at least like heavily influenced by me. I was one of the primary designers on them, and that's really cool. I'm really proud of how they came out, and that's like the biggest thing I've done in games, I think, in terms of like impact on people.
All right. I brought in that image a lot better. So you'll just have to wait a couple seconds until it pops up on the screen. Yeah, I was just thinking about this. Yeah, so if anybody does have any questions, Tom will be fully willing to tell you that he can't answer them. If I can't. Yeah, if he can't answer them. But otherwise, if you have any questions, if you want to talk a little bit about game design, if you can't tell, this is what he loves. And certainly he and I think in a recent Virtual Legality episode, I mentioned the fact that he and I worked on a couple of mobile apps, video games that we think actually turned out pretty well. And so he's been doing this kind of stuff for forever. And quite frankly, I'm a pretty successful lawyer, but I always think he is one of the smartest people I know, has learned a lot about a lot of different things to lead him to where he is with video game design. And I'm super proud of him. And so if you have any questions, yeah, absolutely. Throw them at him, and he will tell you if Bobby Kotick would have him killed if he answered. But otherwise, I think my favorite project that you worked on pre-Activision, I still love telling people that you worked on Ratchet and Clank: A Crack in Time because I think that game is phenomenal.
It's funny. Yeah, Crack in Time is great. I loved Ratchet and Clank. I wish they'd make more. Or remaster the stuff that exists. I loved those games. I don't feel like they had as much awareness around it. Like I would say it and people would be like, I don't know what that is. Whereas like I can say I worked on Destiny and everyone's like, yeah, cool. Uh, and I don't know, it's a bigger industry now. Activision marketing dollars, whatever it is, people know about it. Whereas people, but I did have an opportunity where someone, I think it was one of our new hires, was like, "Oh yeah, one of my favorite games is the Ratchet and Clank series." I'm like, "Oh, that's how I started on in the industry." Like, no shit. Am I allowed to say shit?
Well,
Am I allowed
you've
to say it
already said
twice?
it. I mean, it's live, so it is what it is, bud.
Um, but yeah, he was like, so he was super excited, which was really cool. That was my first job out of school.
Yeah, was it your first job entirely? Was working on a crack in time?
Well, it was my first job out of game school. I worked for a credit card company briefly after I graduated from college.
Okay, I don't think they want to hear about your credit card
I'm
company
sure they
stories.
don't.
Oh, okay. Hey,
They don't, but I do have a picture with a pair of Vikings
from your
that is
credit card
related
company?
to that job.
Okay. All right. Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. I think I know what you're getting at.
These advertisements are old now, but I'm going to leave that out for
You know,
for the
they
the
can figure
chat
it
to
out.
discover.
They can figure it out. So we do see a chat question here, and you can demur as much or as little as you want to. But one of the questions that's been going on around the game industry, there's a bunch of talk about unionization and crunch and various work-life balance kind of condition questions. And so the question in the chat is thoughts on crunch. It's software development. I think you have been through some crunches. I think you've been through some projects that maybe didn't have as much crunch. Obviously, it takes a lot out of you. Do you have any kind of generalized thoughts about how the industry operates? Not Activision specific, but just what you've seen and how things get at the end of a project, and whether or not things like delays are good or if they're actually an issue for people. Because one of the things that came out in a bunch of articles is when Cyberpunk gets delayed for 6 months, it just means they're going to crunch for 6 months and things like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, thoughts on crunch is kind of a pretty loaded question.
Yeah, no, keep it
We
light.
could just talk. We could just talk about that for the next couple hours. Um, I think so. Let me see. What's the best way? So, I think it's generally bad. And I think everyone kind of agrees on this. But at least when I was in school, the statistic was like there's basically not more than 5 years of experience averaged around the industry because people burn out so hard.
Yeah,
And as a young single guy, it's not a big deal. You can kind of do it, and it doesn't super affect you. You don't really have a lot better to do. But once you get a family and kids and other responsibilities that you may already have, it doesn't really account for those particularly well as you might expect. It's a really hard work life balance thing, and the good thing I think is a lot of developers now are very, or when I say developers, I mean people interviewing are very quick to ask like, what is your mentality on crunch? How do you deal with it? And on and on and on. So I've been really happy with High Moon, and we've had to do some a little bit, but basically, one, I get paid overtime, so that's nice.
that's
Until
right.
I'm not hourly anymore. Um, I think that's actually as a result of California law, because actually when I worked at Insomniac, which also involved crunch, I was salaried, so I didn't get any extra money for those hours. So I think something changed where they were like, this seems wrong. I personally think that uh, if you're going to crunch, like regardless of salaried, hourly, whatever, you have to figure out some way to compensate those people, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think the games industry relies on the fact that you don't have to do that
Yep.
to squeeze a lot of extra work out of people. That's not fair.
And we've talked about it, but I usually describe your profession as a rock star profession for a certain type of person, which is that there are a lot of people that want to break in, and there are a lot of people that are younger, out of school, as you say, maybe don't have as many responsibilities outside of work, that are willing to do those kinds of things, and it becomes an interesting dynamic that I think, in my opinion, looking at it from outside, from afar, the industry is still kind of trying to grapple with in terms of both the negative publicity, but also getting products out the door.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's just, and the biggest problem which the industry has yet to deal with, and I think not developers, more like publishers are trying to figure out, is the cost to make a game keeps going up, and the price of a game hasn't changed. So you have to figure out, there's basically, you either have to put less money out or more money, or if you get more money in. And the industry has grown in terms of people that participate in it. So I'd imagine sales figures continue to go up. But ironically, the dollars that you're getting now are worth less than the $60 you got 10 years ago.
Yep.
So it's just, and so that's where you get kind of microtransactions and things like that. And then people are like, oh, that there's a hatred of microtransaction. And it's like, well, we could sell the game to you for $100, but you wouldn't buy that either. Like at some point, like we have to make the math work.
Yeah, well, and we've talked about it. I think I like macro transactions. I always consider basically every Ubisoft game that comes out now to be $100.
Sure, because you can buy their, like, I want all your shit and I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you the Season Pass Plus version, and then I'm done.
Yeah, you just go buy Assassin's Creed Odyssey for $100, or you can buy it, 3 years later for $7.99 now or whatever. But that's what I do.
And that's good if you have a developer that you like super trust.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I bought the like Ultra Edition of Borderlands 3, and I haven't played the new content because I thought Borderlands 3 was fine. But it generally sort of paled in comparison for me to Destiny 2, which is kind of a similar looter shooter thing. So I finished Borderlands 3. I started up like a new run of it in the like super hard mode, and then I kind of have gone back to it once or twice, but the gunplay is just not as tight, and so I end up not playing it. But I've invested that money, and it's like whatever. I'm not crying about it, but if I could make that assessment after the fact, it would be better.
Yeah, no, you can't cry about Borderlands 3 when you bought Origin Premier just to play Anthem, I think.
I can cry about whatever I want to. And yes, actually, my Origin access is officially done.
Okay.
They sent me. It's funny because I canceled it, but they sent me a message that basically said your payment has lapsed. I'm like, this is interesting. I told you, is that what we call it now when I say I don't want this anymore? And it's actually funny because I think like one of the options, they're like, they try to get information on you as you're leaving, and it's like, why are you leaving? And you can check as many as you want. And I was like, cost too much, bought for a single game. Like,
yeah. You just could have typed the word Anthem.
Yep, Anthem. You Anthemed me.
All right.
And I'm out.
So, very much thanks for the question. Hope that answered some of your thoughts on Crunch. Obviously a touchy topic, and obviously one Tom can't dive into the details on for either his specific situation or really even the situations in the past. But I think it's an interesting conversation to have. It's certainly one that a lot of people that love video games but don't want the people that make them to die for them are concerned about.
There's some other questions in the chat I can respond to. I feel like it's like an AMA.
You can answer. Just feel free to say you don't want to answer something if you don't want to answer something.
It's fine. Conditions crazy. I don't think I've had to do a 7-day week in my career. 6-day weeks of 12 plus hours, definitely. But I have not. I don't think I've had to do 18 plus days, 7 days a week. But I've heard of people, and that is crazy.
Yeah, that's rough.
Even the crunch that we hit, you're really missing out on things with your kids and spouses and things like that, and it's felt.
You have spouses?
Not all of us. But many of us, yes. We perform these human actions like dating and marriage.
The joke was that you personally had plural spouses. Now I've had to explain it.
I was referring to developers.
All right.
Not I have multiple spouses.
All right. Now I've had to explain it. It's all over. Yeah.
So yeah, but I've definitely heard of it. Different companies have different crunch mentalities, and like I said, I don't think it's right. I think it's wrong. I think that's part of the unionization movement is the ability to basically say we're not doing this.
Yeah.
And no one who can work for you can do this, so you have less of that pressure from the guy who wants your spot, who's like, I'll work for nothing for 100 hours a week.
Yeah, and that gets into more exciting political discussions than I think THABTO is prepared to have right now.
It's probably true because I can't actually comment past that.
I know you can't. I know you can't. So yeah, it's a constant push-pull I think it's worth just saying that you know this, I think, but you should know that obviously, the people that love video games, I think mostly, want you guys to not die making them for us.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's almost a dirty little secret. In terms of, it's not a secret really, but like if you look at something like a Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh yeah.
That didn't literally kill some people, I don't think.
Yeah.
But it cost some people a lot. And they say there's an echo.
There might be. I'm not seeing anything on my end, but it's probably a drop in our connection, would be my guess.
Gotta mute something in OBS.
I'm personally echoing? Okay.
Actually, he said Hoeg, so that's both of us. But I have no control. I'm just shooting my audio at Rick. What was I saying? Hoeg, you have a reverb effect on. Which one? Me?
Yeah, they're used to calling me Hoeg.
Okay. That's fair.
I'm pretty sure that's me. Okay. Well, I didn't hit anything differently since we started. So whatever's happening with respect to sound, only Richard. Of course, it's only me. That's fine. That's fair.
I kind of like it. But thank you, Hades.
There you go. Rick has an echo. All right.
It's giving you gravitas.
We'll see. We'll see if it goes away. I've got headphones on. I've got. Yeah. We'll see if it goes away. I apologize in advance, or else I'll just have Tom talk to you the whole time.
Just pose a question.
But stepping aside from the chat for a second, I've had Captain Jean-Luc Picard looking at us for like a solid 10 minutes now.
I think he's actually looking away from us.
He's looking down at his dog, but I didn't want to bring the dog into the image. Although, if you haven't seen the new Picard series yet, Tom, his dog's name is Number One, which I loved every time he said it. So that's a good.
You just get used to things.
Yeah, that's a good decision. Have you seen Picard?
I have not. That's on CBS All Access, right?
Yeah. So the way our family works is we essentially drop off like one ancillary digital streaming service for whatever is the thing we want to watch. So we had Netflix for when The Witcher came out. And I know we mostly talked about the game, but I actually didn't love the series that much, so we could talk about that if you wanted in a bit. But we dropped that off when Picard came out so that we could watch Picard, and we did watch the premiere. And you know what I really liked was it was kind of an old master that had seen it all, that had separated from the group that he was a part of and really thought that group had become bad. And then a girl comes to him seeking solace, seeking help and aid. And you know what he doesn't do? He doesn't say just terrible things about her or the organization and then go and try to hide and say he wants to die. He instead joins the adventure. And I thought that was a twist. That subverted my expectations.
Wait, I lost you. I was watching the chat and I lost you. What?
Oh my God, Tom.
I'm working on it. Okay, multiple streams is not my thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a new feeling to have a chat going at the same time. I found that a couple of live streams ago. I was just joking about the fact that Picard does a better job of the old retired man coming back into the fight than perhaps some Rian Johnson-led blockbuster motion pictures would have had happen.
Okay.
Yeah. It does sound like two mics closely synced. Yeah, interesting. I wonder why that is.
Well, I wonder why it presumably wasn't happening when we started.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. This is still a test run. I'll definitely go over the recording when we get this finished and kind of see what's happening there. But we're still figuring it out and working on the audio inputs and the audio outputs and everything else. So we definitely appreciate the comments and trying to help out with the whole process. But it's probably not going to be fixed until the next go around, because I'm not savvy enough to do these things on the fly without breaking them.
Get on it.
So it works ish right now. We're gonna stick with that. But in any event, check out Picard. If you're not, you're probably not going to get CBS All Access. But the next time it's available to you, or otherwise, kind of you're at my house or something, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we had it briefly. I don't think we have it right now. When the Twilight Zone came out.
Oh, okay, the Jordan Peele one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I said. We rotate them around, and so this is CBS's 2 months or whatever. But I was, it's the low expectations that help. But I was very impressed by Picard, at least its first episodes, and I was assuming that it would be essentially an affront to everything I hold dear from the Next Generation, and it wasn't. So that was nice.
Hey, it's subverting those expectations.
Well, it did subvert those expectations. So yeah, finally we got to talk about Picard. Now he can go away. Yeah, but we just jumped in. We were distracted by the chat. We'll get back to them in a second. Outside of Doom 2016, we haven't talked in like 4 months, at least on videotape here.
Control. Control is the other game I finished, which I finished with you there.
Oh yeah. Well, we can talk a little bit about Control. People that are interested in my thoughts on Control, I'm not going to go find an image of Control. This will be my protest for Control. It's just going to be blank for Control. But if people are interested in my thoughts, I think I talk about it for 45 minutes in a post-mortem. And I love Remedy games. I've loved almost everything that they've done. There are certain things to like about Control. The narrative for me wasn't one of them. And that's really what I was kind of hitting hard on my postmortem. Since I finished it, and I think maybe after you finished it, IGN has made Control its game of the year for 2019. Why don't you tell me how you feel about the Control experience having finished it at this point?
Hey, just so you know, you're cutting in and out a lot for me. So I'm struggling to understand you.
Oh boy.
But I think it was basically after having finished it, how do I feel about Control?
Yes.
Control. I have a lot of the same complaints that you do. It's funny because I couldn't listen to your postmortem because it had spoilers. So I was holding off on it until I finished the game. And then when I finished the game, I listened to it. And I agree with a number of the points you make. I think that the setting, kind of the world building aspect of it is neat. I like it. I like the kind of how would a government bureaucracy deal with weird paranormal stuff, sort of like the X-Files. I think that the gameplay is solid. It has some cool stuff. I think they could have done more. It is primarily a third-person sort of non-cover shooter with mostly humanoid enemies. So there's not a lot there. And I think some of the stuff that they do with the kind of setting and the weird paranormal objects of power and all that is good. I think they have fun with that, and I think they could continue to do more with that. I also agree that the narrative for me kind of fell flat in terms of the core line, and I won't reveal anything specifically, but just didn't pay off in my opinion. It's sort of like, and it a lot of the stuff that happens feels like oddly coincidental. So that was not my favorite part, but I mean, I think it's a good game. It has some really good sections. The upgrade system's fine. It's a lot of percentage driven, like, oh, cool, I have 20% more energy for this thing. But like, not very specific things that you feel like now your shield does this, or now when you fly, you create, wake that hurts people or whatever, like more very small percentage adjustments. So I'm happy to have played it. I don't think it's my game of the, he puts up the load. I don't think it's my game of the year. Though I'd have to figure out what my game of the year last year was. I think actually when Steam asked me, I put Destiny 2 primarily just because it felt like I couldn't have played that 250 hours or whatever without, giving them that credit.
Wow. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. I was chasing after a title. I'd never done one before. It was a bit of a slog. Probably burned me out on Destiny. So that's why I'm not really playing it right now. But it's Destiny. I think we've talked about this before. It's the decent hamburger or potato chips. It's like, this is a constantly good thing when I play it. It's fun, it's tight, and it doesn't reach the heights of other stuff that I could be playing.
Destiny, not Control.
Yes, sorry. That was a commentary on Destiny
Yeah,
related to all this.
yeah. I like Destiny. I have to admit I haven't played it since I think the season where you got the Time Lord orb or whatever. So I think that was the first season. I think we're
Yeah,
probably halfway through the second season or so.
I think that's about right. Yeah,
Uh,
we're in the Sundial season.
yeah, so I keep track of it. But one thing I did see, there was a big news item about like a collective puzzle thing. Did you do any of that?
I did not. I haven't participated in it at all. We have a Destiny chat at work because a bunch of people still play pretty heavily, and I'm on that, and I kind of monitor it and listen to it. And yeah, it sounds like it was a huge crowdsourced puzzle.
Yeah, yeah, like
With
with
the
icons and things.
Yeah, like every run through the sundial would reveal like little bits to people, and everyone had to put their bits together to make it make sense. But I also understand, as I understand it, the reward was pretty not great in effectively releasing a bit of content that they intended to release just a little bit early. But
It
I
was
could
like
be wrong.
it was like a gun or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was like on the roadmap as everyone gets this like next week.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Well, that reminds me of I don't know if you remember when Portal 2 was releasing and like Valve and Steam had all these various things that had like little Portal 2 pieces into them and like you had to earn potatoes, I think, for some kind of early release, like that was making the release happen faster. And then it looked like the release was basically when it was going to happen anyway. But
I vaguely recall that, yeah, which is like we've built this system so that if they really hit it hard, it'll come out like a day early.
you earned your day. You earned your day. Feel good. But yeah, I mean, I think Destiny 2 is great. I have enjoyed my time with Destiny 2. It is certainly vastly better than when it was originally released. And I'm looking forward to Destiny with even better load times in and out of the planet and things, which is what I think mostly we're going to get out of the next generation. Which actually leads us, I think, into that conversation as well. I mean, Xbox basically announced that there weren't going to be any exclusives for their new console for at least a couple years, that it was essentially just going to be running old stuff better. And we don't know exactly what's happening with Sony because they're not coming to E3. I think everybody expects them to kind of have a blowout for PlayStation 5 next month or maybe in March. But it seems like a really strange generational transition. One, are you going to get any of the new consoles when they come out? And two, if you are you excited about any of them?
I don't have specific plans for a console, though I imagine I'll probably get one, and I would probably err on the side of the PlayStation just because I like their IPs better. I also I can get most of the exclusive Xbox stuff on my PC, and my PC is actually where I play primarily.
Oh, yeah.
So if I was going to get a console, I'd probably get a PlayStation 5. I'm not particularly eager about it. I'm pretty sure my computer right now is about as powerful as that system's going to be. And I have it now. I mean, I could be wrong. Like it may be more powerful. But also like the way that I'm set up personally is just like I have a little office where it's great to have a computer and that works really well with what I'm doing. But like I don't have a big TV room or something where I could just play video games. I mean, I suppose I could. Anyway, sorry, that's all personal. But
you know what? These kinds of conversations and podcasts or videocasts or whatever, people don't mind hearing a little bit about your personal situation.
so anyway, I don't play my consoles that much anymore. Just my office is more conducive to play for me in terms of also like half or more of the stuff I play I consider inappropriate for my young children.
Sure.
So it's like this gives me a little space to do that while they're awake.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I love my Switch, actually, is mostly you can play things out of a smorgasbord of choices that are okay with little kids around. Although,
your daughters don't do what my sons do, which is just like climb on me. What you doing? What are you playing? What's that guy doing? What's it? Did you kill that guy?
No. Yeah, I think we have slightly different children experiences. But they do love to play various things on the Switch. My youngest is currently playing through Pokemon on the Switch. The older one is playing The Sims now a little bit more. And so that's interesting to see. They're playing kind of more technical video games as things go through.
I believe my oldest has been talking to your oldest. Now they communicate.
Yeah,
because
scary.
my oldest, my daughter asked for if she could play The Sims, and Adriana asked me, my wife, if that was okay, if I thought that was okay for her. So that's funny. That's probably coming from her cousin.
Yeah, it's mostly okay. You got to watch it a little bit, but
Yeah,
yeah.
there's what Whoopi.
Yeah, yeah.
You gotta, but
It's
at least
pretty
my
ambiguous.
daughter knows pretty much where babies come from.
It's pretty ambiguous.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's a good time to have those kinds of experiences. I think I'm in a bit of the same boat. I'm very likely to get at least one of the new consoles. It's very interesting for you to say, the Xbox stuff comes out on the PC, so I really don't have to worry about it. I think that's true, that Microsoft is really, really starting to focus on an ecosystem rather than just selling a console to people. And it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Mm-hmm. And I think, one of the interesting pieces of news that came out either last week or this last week is that there's a rumor going around that Horizon Zero Dawn, which is a 10 million copy PlayStation exclusive, is going to come out on the PC.
Oh, okay.
And exactly what Sony's doing there. Now, I do think there's a confounding kind of factor, which is that was made with the Decima engine, and the Decima engine is what's used in Death Stranding. And I think Guerrilla was probably dragged into helping make Death Stranding compatible with PC. Death Stranding was always going to be on the PC.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. That all sounds credible.
And so once that engine kind of was figured out for that, I'm not sure about these things. I'm not the technical guy for this stuff. But it strikes me that maybe it wasn't as expensive to run Horizon out there on the PC as well. And it also serves as a good test case to see if it eats into anything. It's 3 years old, so it probably doesn't. It probably serves as marketing for what'll be whatever they subtitle Horizon 2. But I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, because Sony really hasn't done that very often.
I honestly, for what it's worth, don't think I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of strength behind exclusives that aren't timed. I understand if the company's putting their own money into it, but I honestly think they'd make more money if they're just like, you can get it first here on the PlayStation, and in a year you can get it over here. And most people would be like, still have about the same kind of push to buy a PlayStation to play that game. Like a year is a long time for people to wait, but I'm not making these business decisions. I'm sure they have lots of data to support that no exclusives need to be like super exclusive. To have some level of, when you buy a PlayStation, you get these things you can't get anywhere else.
Well, that was the original goal with things like Microsoft buying, what was it, Rise of the Tomb Raider for a year, which made every Tomb Raider fan hate them for a while, which, isn't the greatest move. But
especially something here where you're like doing a generational transition. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you've basically sold all the PlayStations you're going to sell with Horizon. So now you say, all right, Xbox and PC people who didn't play this, it's apparently a really good game. Please buy it.
Yeah.
And if you like it, the second one will be exclusive to PlayStation 5.
Yeah, Horizon 2 will be available on your nearest PlayStation 5. Buy them while they're hot.
So, I mean, I think to a certain extent, like things eventually going non-exclusive just makes sense to me, because the long tail is very long and very valuable. And to a certain extent, sorry, I said to a certain extent like 3 times. You've already kind of carved out what you're going to get from that, because the whole idea of an exclusive, right, is to sell consoles. Like that's really the only reason you would do it.
Yeah.
And so once that's not your your lead SKU anymore, you can kind of let that up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense.
But I think we're also going to see, I'm hopeful that this generation on, based on the architecture that we saw in the 4 and the Xbox and whatever, we're going to see a lot of heavy backwards compatibility.
Well, the rumor is that one of the arrows left in the PlayStation 5 announcement quiver is that they're going to say that it is backwards compatible to all previous PlayStations, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So what that to me reads is basically it's strong enough that it can run an emulator of 3 minus at full fidelity.
That would be the hope, right? I mean, that
would be my guess in terms of how you're doing it, because the architectures are so different. They couldn't possibly have like a cell processor in there doing that crap. And
I thought you could just brute force it, right? If you have a overhead of 120,000% or something.
yes, if you're so powerful to an extent, like sometimes you require an emulator that doesn't suck. Like at some point, it's like the emulator can only go so fast. So they have to work on creating the emulator and making it solid. And then, yes, they can use the fact that the PlayStation 5 is, 10 times more powerful than PlayStation 3 to make up the difference.
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be one of their sales pitches. I just think we're at a place right now where there isn't going to be a massive difference in how things look. I mean, obviously, people are kind of intrigued by ray tracing and kind of the cool lighting things that people can do, and I think it'll look better. Don't get me wrong. But I think we're at a place where it's not that enormous jump where you say, oh my goodness, when the Xbox 360 came out, you're like, wow, that's high definition.
Right.
And that was a big deal. And I think, you get past, I don't know what the number is. Different people have different numbers. But you get past 1440p or whatever, and you're starting to get granular as to your improvements. And
I saw a line in the chat that I want to respond to. So Hades said, backwards compatible with the original means we'll have a disk drive. And I'm almost certain that does not mean that. Though I wish it did. I would hope that Sony has some... Oh, I mean, I guess it could, because they have Blu-ray and stuff that they're still trying to back.
It'll have a disk drive. The question is will a disk be required? I don't think that's what they mean by backward compatibility. At least, the Xbox has really had a lot of success with everything that they have made backward compatible you can download.
People are complaining about your mic again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I would expect that the big sale there is not, and maybe they'll find a way to make it work with your old discs. My presumption is they'd be like, we can scan the disc and give you a digital copy. But that it's just like, no, you just have this huge back library of things you can play. And we will, you can get it all. Here's the PlayStation 1 through 3 library. Enjoy. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think ideally for me is I bought a lot of things digitally. Would be you buy your PlayStation 5. Everything that you've bought digitally on the PlayStation 4 is available to you day one on the 5. There's really no reason I think that shouldn't happen. But you don't know what you don't know until you get the actual console in your house.
But either way, and the truth is, like, I don't think the 360 has some backwards, or the Xbox One has some backwards compatibility with the 360, right? Like, there's 360 titles you can play on it, but it's not. If you have the disc, it's like you have to buy it again or something, don't you? Like, there's no.
No, you can just pop the disc. You can pop the disc in, and it'll work.
Oh, okay.
But what they did at the same time is they put those all up on their store. So, for instance, I was playing Lost Odyssey, I think. Great game for those of you who don't know. But I had either lost or I'd scratched up one of the discs to just high heaven. And so I went on the store, and for whatever it was, $10, 15 maybe, you buy the version of Lost Odyssey, and then you can just play it on your Xbox One. It's super nice. And honestly, video games have needed to come to this kind of realization at the console level for a long time now. It hurts to not be able to play things that you loved and that were great at a certain point in time. The only question I have is, will it kill the remaster market, which maybe isn't the end of the world, but that was something that was buoying up at least certain kind of companies' bottom lines by monetizing their existing libraries in certain ways. So, I don't think necessarily like the Shadow of the Colossus remaster can live if the PlayStation 4 could just play the PlayStation 3 with a little bit more strength.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. It's funny because the PC market basically is what I'm used to. And when remasters come out, like with Steam, you basically just get it if you own the game. I've gotten tons of free, like, here's the remastered version because you own the game. And so it almost feels like you could still have a remaster market. Like, people still want the highest fidelity version. But if it effectively can be determined that it's in your library, you can get it for free.
Or maybe at a bump up.
Oh, yeah. Or maybe like, here, it's a $10 upgrade for you. It's a $30 purchase for everyone else.
That would be really cool. And one of our commenters, Louis Proctor, who has commented on a bunch of my videos, and we very much thank everybody who regularly checks out the channel, has said not all the Xbox stuff that is backward compatible is available digitally on their store. So there are games that directly require the disc, which I think is interesting. That strikes me as maybe a licensing issue.
I was going to say that strikes me more as a legal licensing thing and not an actual technical hurdle.
Yeah, he references Driver San Francisco. It wouldn't surprise me if there are some music tracks in there that are causing trouble. But yeah, it is very nice what Xbox has been able to achieve. I think the worst possible thing you can have in games and kind of the industry in general is just somebody taking off and not having anything even remotely competitive with them. I think the PlayStation 2 really did that, and that's why you got a PlayStation 3 that was kind of, I'm not sure that's exactly what the market was asking for. And I was a little bit worried about that with the Xbox One and kind of PlayStation 4 running away with it. But I think Microsoft has really taken a different tack and gone in a different direction that I think is good for them. I think is good for the consumer. And it still puts pressure on Sony, even if Sony is once again going to be going away the biggest console sale, because that's just the way the world works. Microsoft doesn't have a lot of traction outside the U.S. So I think it's a good thing. I think Sony's having to figure out exactly how they're going to work with their own backward compatibility, what they're going to do with the name escapes me, but their streaming / download service for video games, which is kind of quasi Game Pass.
PlayStation Now,
right. And exactly how all those things are going to work together. I think it's super interesting. And then, of course, you've got Nintendo just in the corner doing weird stuff, selling you cardboard submarines and things. And I love them to death because they're just off doing their own thing.
Well, it's good business, right? It's like the three companies can all bash each other trying to get the same piece of the pie, or they can all find different pieces, serve different pieces of the pie. It's what's the word that they use? I read this in a business book.
Brand like differentiation.
Blue ocean versus red ocean.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's just like finding our niche rather than all of us saying like we're going to be the best console. So I think that's smart, and I think the market's big enough now that you can really support all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I'm ultimately looking forward to the most in the next generation is continuing to see these business models evolve and hopefully bring even more people into what I obviously love as a hobby and is a good ecosystem.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I heard recently that the Switch outsold the Super Nintendo.
Oh, is that right? The Switch has been massively popular. I mean, I can't blame anybody. I love my Switch.
I don't know where that puts it, but I assume it's pretty high.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Nintendo has deserved this success. The Wii U, I know a number of people were worried that they might not be able to recover from. It's certainly nice to see them continue to adapt and do new and different things with their stuff. And like I said earlier in this video, I'm looking forward to the Switch Pro because I would pay probably 2.5 times as much to get just like a really strong Switch because I love the portability and I love the as a guy in a family household, I love being able to have that flexibility.
Do you think the technology is there?
I don't know. That's not. Whoa. Hi, I'm a lawyer. I think that there's going to be a pro model. I don't know whether the gains will be significant. I certainly hope there are. But I think there's going to be a pro model this year, and I'll be very interested in checking it out and sending the current one down the line to one of my daughters. But yeah, I think the Switch is great. I think the new generations will be great in terms of the business models that they are using. The technology, I'm not sure about. One of the things PlayStation is selling itself on is super fast load times, right? They went and they showed last year's Spider-Man game, or I guess 2 years ago Spider-Man game, 2020, folks, actually having very quick load times, like within 2 seconds and things like that. And my concern is the same that I always have with frame rates, right? You developers, you people always push things too far. And so where you could have gotten 60 frames if you had graphics that were slightly better than the last generation, instead you do all sorts of wacky stuff with texture sizes and things, and your frames are just always 30 or flirting with 24 or whatever it is, because you just try to make any given screenshot that much prettier. And so I think what I'm worried about with the load times is either they're going to just have big old things that just get you back to load times at 10 seconds because people have a certain acceptance of that, or you're going to skip an optimization pass or something, and we're just not going to get those benefits. Tell me why I'm wrong, Tom.
Well, so there's a couple things I wanted to do. I wanted to respond to Hades in the chat who said outsold the SNES about the Switch, and so I pulled up the article. It's at the end of last year. According to estimates, the Nintendo Switch sold. This is from Hype Beast. It was just the first article that popped up when I looked up.
Sure, bud.
Nintendo Switch surpasses SNES. Sold 961,543 units in the week ending December 28th of last year, of 2019, bringing its lifetime sales to 49.79 million units worldwide, comparing to the SNES's lifetime sales of 49.1. And it looks like the Switch is also on a path to surpass the original Nintendo, which is at 60 plus million.
Nintendo's back.
So, but apparently the Switch is still a ways off from reaching the PlayStation 2's top selling record of 155 million units.
PS2 was a beast.
Hades, so Hades said 60 frames per second is overrated. To be honest, I'm gonna disagree because I'm a frame whore.
Junkie, frame aficionado, enthusiast.
Sure. I actually find I enjoy the games better. I find games more playable because there's less interpolation. But to each their own.
Yes.
I think
there's PCs are great. PC love.
I think there's honestly, I legitimately think there's a biological component to this that I would love to study, but it doesn't really serve anyone, which is, I think some of the way our eyes work is different than some of the rest of us, just like anything, like the way we see color, the way we see motion. And that 60 doesn't feel different than 30 to some group of people.
Yeah, very possibly.
It might be most people. What you were saying earlier.
Yes, you have to tell me how developers are not going to screw this up for us.
Well, so there was a second thing I wanted to get to, which was so first I'll talk about I'll talk about that last. You were also talking about like developers tend to overdo and hit the 30. And there's a great article or blog post or something from a guy I worked with at Insomniac. His name's Mike Acton. I think he's like on the PlayStation team like directly now. He like works with their hardware team.
Okay.
But he basically was talking about 60, like Insomniac was trying to, so Ratchet and Clank had traditionally been a 60 frames per second franchise. That and hit that, and having worked on it, it's that's a hard thing to hit in terms of like basically everything in the frame has to be calculated in about 16 milliseconds. So he was basically talking about how while Insomniac was making this decision, they were kind of running focus tests or looking at people, and that people generally saw beauty, like fidelity of image, as more fun. They tended to rate a game higher if it was prettier.
In terms of like that screenshot effect, like what the image is.
In play, if you had a group play the 30 frames per second and the 60 frames per second, assuming you could support both, which is really what I think everyone should do, assuming that they can. We've gotten into the Pro versions and the Xbox One X versions, where you can pick performance or like resolution or whatever, frame rate or quality or whatever terms you want to use. I think that given that these things are so much closer to sort of PC games and things like that, if you can, you just offer the option. But it does require them to balance at 2 points. That's more work. To figure out what is the consistent 60 frames per second settings, what is the consistent 30 frames per second settings, and continually over development, kind of readjusting those. I can tell you with like Call of Duty is a 60 frames per second game, and that is like endemic to the franchise. So it's like, if it's not 60, it's like, all right, what are we doing? I think so anyway, so that article was interesting, I thought, because he talks about basically like if you're in the business of selling games, which game companies are, it ends up that 30 frames per second is just more beneficial for you because you can get more quality out of your image. Yes, and also like in screenshot form, your game can just look better.
So what you're telling me is I'm not going to get these load times because they're going to put in super mega textures or whatever, and they're just going to get me back to 10 seconds.
I don't think so, because honestly, I think the main benefit, the load time thing, is coming from the fact that the PlayStation 5 is using a solid state drive, as I understand it, or at least a hybrid. And that's the benefit. So there, it's not going to have like a crazy amount more. I mean, it's probably going to have a crazy amount more memory, but the load time and kind of what you load are separate. So the load time is basically how fast can I get things from the disk into RAM, and then the things in RAM are what you can like throw on the screen pretty fast. So in load times, you're basically, it's taking the slower disk and putting it into the memory, and that takes time. And with a solid state drive, it takes like a tenth of the time or something. It's like they're crazy fast. And I think that's where you're seeing the benefit in load times. And even if the memory, let's say, doubled, so you could store twice as much as you can store now, you'd still be loading that 10 times faster. So in the end, you'd have a load time that's what, 5 times faster? If my math is right.
All right. I believe you. I'm just saying that nobody should be surprised if developers don't figure out a way to get us back to whatever we're used to on load times, because they've got bigger sparklies or smarter textures or whatever it is that they're going to be selling us in a couple of years. It's been the tendency of these things.
Right. The other, obviously, yeah, you don't, like, you push for better, but if you know that people will kind of accept something, you don't worry about it too much, right?
Right.
Like, this is the standard. But I think, and it also depends on, you know, I read the article about the PlayStation 5 Spider-Man thing and showing the load times, and is that a trick? Is that just literally we load up the same game? Or is there like a, you know, oh, we had to optimize X, Y, and Z, but now it loads really fast? Unclear.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next generation. I had heard this story about Ratchet and Clank before. I understand why people give up on 60 frames a second. However, one of my favorite bits about this next generation is going to be what I liked about the transition to the last generation, which is there is at least a period of time, and maybe it's forever for the Xbox, now that they've said that it's not going to have exclusives for a while, etc., that because they have to make this game work on like original recipe Xbox One, if you go and you buy it and it plays on your Xbox Series X, you're going to get all the benefits that I like, faster frame rate, better load times, whatever it might be, because of that lower constraint. And yes, it prevents you from really blowing out the top end. But for me personally, I actually like that transition period because I get more solid frame rates, I get better performance, and that matters more to me at some level than all of the bling that the developers otherwise want to throw at these things.
No, I mean, that's fair. If you look at something like an iPad or iPhone or something that basically the games are all backwards compatible, you play and you're just kind of improving them, and they can even add features and fidelity to, they're like, if you're on this device, you know, we throw these effects in there and whatnot, but we still always have to make sure that we're working on whatever we've decided our min spec is. So yeah, when you've got the cross generation stuff, you can get a little sort of nicer experience in this upgraded thing. I think that's what we saw with the Pros and the Ones or the One X's.
Well, that Xbox One is going to be an anchor, right? I mean, like Halo Infinite has to play on the Xbox One, and it has to play on the Xbox Series X. Like, we're starting to get into like PC low versus ultra kind of differences here.
No, it's true. Well, and like I said, I think what I'd love to see is more and more, as we're getting this kind of extra power, of the developers going with what I'd call very light PC approach of just saying, do you want 60 or 30? 30 will be prettier.
All right, bud. We are well over an hour now, so I want to just catch up real quick on what you've been playing. If there's anything else that you haven't mentioned that you think is cool. You know, you raised Children of Morta to me early on in a THABTO that I'd never heard of, that I actually wound up buying and really, really loving. Check it out if you're interested, everybody.
Yeah, you got it on the Switch, right?
I got it on the Switch. It's a great Switch game. Switch game.
Seems like it's all pixel art and stuff, so you don't really hit any performance.
Yeah, they just have they have longer load times between like actually loading into the dungeon, but since it's a 30-minute run or whatever, it works out just fine. Is there anything else that you've either been playing that you're looking forward to that you want to flag for us? I know you mentioned like the latest Mech Warrior that I haven't bought that you've been enjoying, I think.
I did. So I bought a bunch of stuff on the Epic Game Store holiday sale where it was like $10 off everything on top of the sale prices. So yeah, yep. I picked up Mech Warrior 5 Mercenaries, which I was really enjoying. I haven't played it recently.
As you do.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. You can only play so much. I have, so Doom has been my recent thing. Like I said, I finished Prey, and I started playing Prey Moon Crash, which is, old at this point, but still
I
fun.
love Moon Crash. I cannot overstate how much I love that as a specific piece of DLC. One of my favorites ever.
Well, it's a great DLC in terms of like, here we took all the core systems and kind of turned them on their head, so we don't have to do a lot of kind of reimagining, which is the whole point of DLC, but we made something that's effectively a different game.
Yeah, so Prey Moon Crash, excellent. Everybody should check it out. MechWarrior you were enjoying, but we need more info because I haven't bought it yet, and I haven't played a MechWarrior game for real since the Clan game in the early 2000s, whatever that was.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. If you love the MechWarrior series, I easily recommend it because it feels like that, except you're not shooting like 4 polygon like green spew at guys. Like, it actually looks like lasers and missiles and crazy stuff, which it's really fun. And it actually has an aspect that I like, that I think some people have not liked about it, where you're running a mercenary company, so you actually have to balance your budget pretty much in terms of not taking on assignments that are too hard or taking too much damage, or really deciding, should I use missiles on that guy? I got to pay for missiles. They're not super expensive, but it's a thought process. And I like that. I think of it like those, like elite games or space fighter games where you're kind of working your way up and you're training,
Privateer, yeah.
bounties. Yeah. And so you that missile costs like 10 grand. You're like, is this worth it?
Yeah, no, you're speaking my language, economics in a video game. I like it.
So yeah, no, MechWarrior Mercenaries, that you're running a mercenary company, you're hiring pilots, you're maintaining their mechs. Like I thought it was really cool. Like I said, I haven't played it since I got back from my trip to Michigan at the end of last year. But I will definitely be looking forward to kind of getting back into it.
Anything else? Any other hidden gems? And then there's some questions about what we're looking forward to that I want to answer as well.
Any other hidden gems? Hold on one second. I have to sneeze.
Sure. That's live. That's live media for you, everybody.
Did I block it mostly?
No.
I held the thing. Oh, well. So let's see. Other stuff I'm playing. I bought Endless Space 2 for a song.
Okay.
And all of the expansions. So I've started playing that, which I never really could get into, but I've been playing Stellaris because I just always play Stellaris.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I've been up to my neck in work. We had a very successful virtual legality kind of series. We had our first 100,000 view video, so I've been working on the channel, obviously. I think in terms of video games, for me, the most recent purchase that I made is the remake or the remaster of Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore, because JRPGs need names like that.
Oh, what I did start playing, and you know this because I texted you about it, was Darksiders 3, which I am loving. I think I picked that up also on the Epic sale.
I told you Darksiders 3 is awesome. I did.
I think Gunfire is potentially like a great developer. I think we're still seeing. I think they have some polish, work that I think keeps them kind of in the AA space. But
sure.
And Darksiders 3 and Remnant, which I originally played for, friggin' adored, ultimately are very similar. So it still stands to see whether they're gonna, how they can evolve.
Well, they have that like Diablo-esque type game next month, don't they?
They made the Darksiders like top-down Genesis. I don't know. I heard it's good. I haven't played it.
Yeah.
But I've been playing Darksiders 3 and loving that. I personally prefer it to the Fallen Order. Same kind of game in terms of a Dark Souls-esque exploration game.
You're not going to get any disagreement from me. I think I've already talked, maybe not here on the internet, but definitely to you, about how Fallen Order is the 7 of 10est of 7 of 10s for me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gotten lots of games of the years. People I know, I work with and stuff, are like, "Oh, it's so great," and it's like, I think people are just so hungry for a good Star Wars experience that an okay one is like enough.
Sure.
I just like, I thought it was clunky. It was one of the ones I had through EA Access. So when my EA Access went away, it went away. I didn't finish it. I don't super care.
Yeah.
I'd say it's at best it's like a poor man's Sekiro, and that's not just me, being a shill. I actually really liked Sekiro. Activision made it.
I forgot Activision was involved in Sekiro. I wouldn't have even called you a shill.
No. I really like Sekiro. I felt like it has similar combat to what sort of Fallen Order was trying to do in terms of it's like counter based and you're trying to break people's stances and things like that. Sekiro just does it a lot better and generally makes you feel like a ninja when you actually are doing it right. Whereas Fallen Order always felt kind of clumsy. You're like, the timing on this doesn't feel right, and then I'm sort of sucked into this animation where I'm killing this guy, but it's like off, and it's just like, there's enough Dark Souls alikes out there that you don't need to play that one.
Oh, I don't disagree. Now, so you like Darksiders?
I totally agree. Carl Smart 111 says I found the combat in Fallen Order to be the most clunky of its kind that I've ever tried.
Yeah, we're in broad agreement here at the Hoeglaw YouTube channel and on Two Hoegs Are Better Than One. I really wanted to love it. I think it is very ambitious, which I like. God, please be ambitious with the Star Wars license. I just think they didn't pull it off to their maximum ability. I hope it's essentially, a starting point that like Assassin's Creed 2, where I didn't much care for the first one. 2 was great. I'm looking forward to them taking another swing at it. But as of right now, I look at it and say, if you took the Star Wars license accoutrement out of that game, you'd be saying, yeah, it's a solid 7.
Right.
Just my opinion. And yeah, you let me skip right by Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore, and I don't know why. But it's excellent. If you haven't played it, it is a Wii U remaster from the kind of Shin Megami Tensei folks. That Tokyo Mirage Sessions, if you're paying attention at home, is SMT in reverse. And so it actually combines certain aspects of Shin Megami Tensei with Fire Emblem characters in a demonic world where only pop idols and music can save humanity. JRPGs, everybody.
My brain just sort of melted a little bit. I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, well, it's got kind of like the Macross approach to you need to fight the evil with song and the love in your heart.
Sure.
But as it turns out, song and the love in your heart also controls Fire Emblem ghosts from other Fire Emblem games.
Wow, that is some stuff there.
That's the Sharp FE. That's hashtag Fire Emblem.
Hashtag Fire Emblem.
But yeah, so I've been playing that, and that's really it. And I haven't played a ton of it. I played it a bunch when it was on the Wii U. I love seeing them kind of remaster stuff. Nintendo, if you're listening to this, as I know you are, bring over Paper Mario Color Splash. Really love that one. Would love to see that on the Switch. Bring everything over. I really don't mind. But other than that, that's all that I've been playing. So as we finish this off, I do want to talk a little bit about what people are looking forward to. We got a question in the chat about whether or not we're looking forward to The Last of Us Part 2. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the coming months and what we are and what we aren't looking forward to. The Last of Us Part 2 has the most hilarious delay of all time. I don't know if you followed this when it happened, but they had a big journalistic blowout. They finished with a release date. It was, I think, February 28th, maybe, something late in February. And then I want to say within 7 days, they had pushed that to the end of May. And you say, wow, how does that even happen in the actual kind of marketing timeline? But it seems like there was at least a right-hand, left-hand issue there with what was being communicated. But it's coming out in May, we think. Are you looking forward to it? I know you loved Last of Us. I loved Last of Us. Are you looking forward to a sequel to that game?
Yeah, I thought Last of Us was great. I thought the ending was a little off, in my opinion.
We talked
about that at length.
Oh, gosh. All right. We're adding an hour to this.
Well, it's the big problem, of course, being when you're playing a game and the character makes decisions that you don't feel like you would make, there becomes a weird disconnect. Anyway, Last of Us was great. I loved it. I thought that it told a great story. I really liked its improvisational combat.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the sequel.
Yeah. See, here's my issue. I'm also looking forward to it. I hope very much that Naughty Dog can put together a good plot line for it. I have the same concern that I do with something like, let's say, The Matrix Reloaded, where the original story really worked in a capsule, really worked completely, in my opinion, as a whole story. Yes, we can argue about, what was it, ludonarrative dissonance towards the end of that game. Sorry, I'm getting my English degree on.
Big words.
Yeah, I don't have an English degree, chat. But they use the big words to describe separation from what you're asked to do or what you're ordered to do and what you want to do. But as a story, if you were watching it as a TV show or movie, I think it finished in a fashion that told its own story. And I worry about a sequel to that. I worry about, from a plot perspective, Last of Us is such a narrative-driven game. Yeah, the improvisational combat is what puts it over the edge and what we love about it as a gameplay. And it'll still have that, I assume, and it'll still be enjoyable to traverse and to play. But the actual reason behind that, I always worry about taking another dip at the well. And if you're on the Hoeglaw YouTube channel, you know I've been recently burned by one of my favorite media series going back to the well in Star Wars. And so I'm a little bit more sensitive to things potentially going wrong. And certainly you add on to that, that while I think it works for Last of Us as a series, Naughty Dog has basically only output dour and depressing games now for a solid decade. And I say, well, is there going to be anything kind of that isn't going to be nihilistic and cynical and dark in Last of Us Part 2? And I look at that and I say, I worry, because this is the same studio that recently took Uncharted down a notch to deliver an Indiana Jones that hates adventure hunting and is maybe going to get divorced from his wife. And I say, well, that wasn't really what I was looking for, Naughty Dog. And I wonder about Last of Us Part 2.
No, that's fair. I don't like anything. I don't know much about it in terms of, is it following the same characters? I mean, maybe
yeah, it's Ellie and Joel. I think Ellie's the main character.
Okay. Well, I think that thinking that if Ellie's the main character, you could create an interesting story where if Ellie's the main character, I have reasons to believe Joel's dying.
Not reasons from many inside sources for what it's worth, everybody.
I don't work with Naughty Dog. I just have reason to believe from the way you tell stories that when you pass the torch to a younger person, the older person mentors and then eventually has to go away so the younger person can prove themselves.
Well, you can see Joel on your screen here. He's looking older. I don't know whether Troy Baker can be killed. I think that's a question for another time.
The Last of Us logo there also, it's like the Godfather font.
Yeah, I think that's how it's always looked. No, in any event, yeah. I think there's a good reason to believe there are high levels of risk for the characters that we've known before. Certainly, calling it Part 2, much like The Godfather, is suggestive of it being a continuation rather than a sequel, at least in the way that they concepted it. So there are reasons to believe that it will be good, and Naughty Dog will deliver a high-fidelity, excellent gaming experience. The question I just continue to have is, will it be narratively fulfilling? Because The Last of Us really did transcend that in terms of video games for me. I know not for everybody.
I'd be interested to see that, and I agree. It tells kind of a full story, and so that's always a thing, a question, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Certainly, there's plenty of media that proves the point.
Yes, sequels are risky though. We'll see. And yeah, put a pin in a May. I'm still not positive about May. We'll see.
Now, I'm gonna guess. Eventually, we get close enough to Halloween that we're like Halloween.
Oh, really? You think it's gonna just leap over May straight into October?
Well, it depends. It depends on their books and their business reasons. But certainly, I think there's a value to releasing something that's kind of scary during the Halloween season. Now, I mean, I guess that's not, everybody.
Well, with Avengers moving and with they own May if they want to keep the slot. So the question is, as ever, exactly what you're aimed at and everything else. May has also now been a Sony kind of exclusive standard kind of position. I believe that's when Days Gone released. Maybe it released a little bit earlier. But like the springtime has been now God of War, Days Gone, Last of Us. It's been a time that Sony hits. I think Detroit came out in the spring. So they do try to aim at that.
Okay.
October is when you release Medieval. Maybe Medieval 2. Yeah. And I don't think anybody liked Medieval as much as me.
The only other thing I wanted to say about Last of Us is just like it's the opening prologue was so effective.
True.
that I there's very few things that have emotionally affected me as much as that opening.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very good, and it puts you right into the feet of Joel. I always like to talk about those games that I think video games sometimes ignore it, but having that kind of momentum cannon at the beginning of a video game can be very, very useful. One of my favorite games that everybody hates and that nobody talks about, Mafia 3, has that. Oh, you snickered immediately.
No, I just snickered because you said everybody hates and nobody talks about.
Right, so we're going to talk about Mafia 3 right now because one of my favorite parts of it, and there's much to complain about in the middle, we're not going to have that argument, is that the beginning, the first 3 hours or so, is a launching pad that absolutely keeps up the momentum of the game, even when you're doing kind of rote stuff for like a solid 10 hours, because they have set up your motivation, they have set up how you've been wrong, they have set up exactly what it is that you're doing and why so well that more video games really need to do that. And The Last of Us is a great example of, if you get that right, you have that momentum for so long, even if you didn't like the gameplay. Last of Us you do, but even if you didn't, that kind of narrative beat is useful to selling video games, and not enough people do it. Anyway, so The Last of Us 2, or Part 2, I think we are looking forward to. I think that's really the big one in May. Before that, I'm most looking forward to Final Fantasy VII Remake. I was not, for the record, looking forward to it that much. Before the E3 presentation last year, I thought for sure they would ruin it. Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorites in my history of playing video games. And so I thought they would not maybe have it be as cool as it could be, maybe Kingdom Hearts it a little bit. And I really was impressed by what they revealed at E3 last year. And so that was a hard delay for me from March 3rd, I think, to April 10th. But that is by far the game I'm looking forward to the most this year, including Cyberpunk, including Last of Us, including Ghost of Tsushima, anything else you might be looking forward to. Number one on my list is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Do you have a number one for the rest of the year? I know you don't hype things, buddy.
I don't, so it's probably Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk, sure. I don't blame you. CD Projekt Red is amazing. It looks dark. My issue is this, and I think it's probably popped up in THABTO before. I can do darkness. I can watch some dark shows. I can play some dark games. If it's going to be 100 hours of that level of darkness, I'm probably going to need a palate cleanser to go with it, so it's going to take me a while to get through.
No, it's true. It's funny, actually. I feel that way about it. I particularly think about it whenever I watch a Netflix show. Is I'm like, literally every Netflix show is this like dark and depressing and apocalyptic and horrible thing. Or they occasionally do things like Funner House or whatever, where it's like, oh, it's a goofy comedy.
That's Fuller House, sir.
Fuller House, not Funner House, sir. And it's just like, yeah, I don't need every piece of my media to be like, to try to freak me out.
Well, your Netflix point is well taken, because I think you were the one that warned me. I went to go watch Lost in Space the other day, and I was like, okay, yeah, Robbie the Robot, Danger Will Robinson, Matt LeBlanc in the 90s going on a spaceship, whatever it is. And I turned it on, I watched the first episode. I was like, oh, they made like a weird survivalist horror.
Is that? Yeah, my wife says she can't watch it. That I think in the first episode, one of the kids is trapped under ice.
They drowning. Are. That's exactly right.
She's like, I can't.
They made it like a survival horror type thing, and it's like, yeah, I mean that's basically the Netflix way. Interestingly enough, I think Witcher, having watched it, is significantly more goofy than I thought it would be. I liken it to a CW show, which isn't as slight as much as it might sound to some folks, because I don't mind CW shows. We watch Rain, we watch The 100, whatever. But The Witcher doesn't take itself seriously very much, and winds up coming off pretty goofy. And my God, if I hear "Toss a Coin to Your Witcher" one more time, I'm gonna just strangle someone. It's not that good a song, everybody. I'm sorry, you heard it here first on THABTO, but that is the way it is. But no, so yeah, Netflix has that kind of dour element. Cyberpunk, I've watched the 55-minute demonstration. It looks super cool. It just also looks like it's going to be super bleak and dark and nihilistic and sad. And that's going to come off of a summer of playing Last of Us if it releases in May. Say what you will about Final Fantasy VII, it's going to be goofy and anime. It's also going to be about eco-terrorism and corporations destroying everything. It's like, yeah, all right. Final Fantasy VII is not the most upbeat of the Final Fantasies. So it's I need a few more. I need Mario Odyssey 2 to be announced and released or something.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. Certainly, you kind of go to you go to Nintendo or something for just like I'm playing Pokemon. It's not a horrible post-apocalyptic Pokemon yet. And then I think the other thing is I'd be interested to see things like some IP, especially with like future stuff, explore something more utopian. I'd say this akin to kind of a Star Trek where like there's mostly no poverty. They can cure most illnesses. People don't have to work if they don't want to. And this is, we could talk about like, yeah, that's insane. But
it's not insane.
It focuses on a different thing than like hardship and like the downtrodden. And like, I don't know. It seems like a section we don't explore anymore. It's just, everything's about like survival and rough.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think that's something that a lot of people have been looking into. I think a lot of folks point to 9/11 as kind of changing the pop culture landscape for at least a time. And that one of the reasons I would argue that things like the MCU are as successful as they are is that they kind of go against that. Right. That's just essentially pure heroism. And yeah, they're a little bit snarky and a little bit self-conscious and meta. But mostly you can sit down, you can go watch a Marvel movie, and it's going to be heroes beating villains. And so, I think it is interesting. I'd like to see video games do that a bit more. It is interesting to me that Nintendo seems to have the monopoly on, cute anything, that neither Microsoft nor Sony is really aimed at hitting those kinds of beats right this second.
There's like, forget it.
Yeah, because I think they're worth tackling. Nintendo makes a fortune on its Marios and its Zeldas and everything else, and Sony doesn't even do anything like that anymore. I suspect Activision after selling a lot of copies of Crash and Spyro, are probably going to try to take another crack at it. It'll be interesting to see if they can succeed at it, doing their own designs. You don't have to say word one about this particular set of sentences, buddy. But yeah. And Louis Proctor's right. Winter Soldier is about kind of a 1970s government paranoia thriller. I like that the Marvel Cinematic Universe can do different tones, but I do think Winter Soldier, Civil War, some of those are as down as the MCU gets, and is kind of the exception that proves the rule for those films. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I'd like to see more. I think people get stuck on it being cute. But I'd like to see stuff that was more approachable, a little bit less man-shooty, a little bit less murdery, a little bit less, it's sad, the world is dead or dying, and we have to do something about it from there. I mean, even think God of War, if you go all the way back to the beginning of God of War, yeah, it was violent, but it was kind of comic booky, and it went down and down and down until you get to God of War 2000, whatever that year is, 17, 18, and it becomes kind of self-serious in a way that I think is great. I think you can have good narratives from that. I'm not saying God of War did have a good narrative on that. Leave your comments in the video. But it's something that I would like to see more of. And I wish Microsoft or Sony were attacking it. A Sly Cooper type thing. Maybe not the most money in the world, but something that is more family-friendly. I guess they tried it with Knack, but it's been a while since Knack.
Yeah, well, that's it's funny. You could look at. I don't really play my PlayStation, but you were able to look at like, they did like a year in review thing that you could look up for your account.
Yeah,
and mine was like, since I don't use it, my sons do, and it was like Knack 2, like Scribblenauts, God of War were my top 3 games. It was like, God of War was me.
Sure. I won't tell CPS.
I was trying to get through it, and I didn't. The funny thing is, you were talking about like violence and stuff. Is like, I think God of War, whatever, like God of War 2000.
I think we decided it's 18. Pretty sure it's 18.
2018, I'd say is actually less violent than like God of War 3. It seems. One, you're fighting like zombies and stuff, but 2, like. I still remember in God of War 3, you like disembowel one of the characters, and it's just like, this is, just because you can do a thing Doesn't mean you should do a thing.
No, I agree on 3. I think 3 mostly was the same as 1, except like, wow, graphics are much better now.
Yeah, maybe that's it, right? Like, it's like, no, we were always doing these hyper violent things, pixels. We just couldn't show you.
Yeah. Yeah, and God of War 2018 does do the kind of rip and tear until it's done, even to the Draugr or whoever. I mean, it's like you're going at them.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
But yeah, no, so yeah, looking forward to some stuff. Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's my number one. I'm interested to see how it turned out. I'm interested to see where they finish it. I'm interested to see, how that project continues. I am deathly worried that if it doesn't sell 50 million copies, that you're not going to get it finished, or you're going to get it kind of Xenosaga into various small chunks. So I would really like to see it be great. I'd really like to see it succeed. And I'm a bit nervous about that whole project because, if they just wind up not finishing it or having a Kickstarter for the Shenmue 3 version of the finale, it's going to be an issue for me. But I think that's it. I think that's it for me today. Tom, any other last words?
No, I don't think so. I think yeah, I don't have any last words.
No problem. Well, I want to thank everybody for trying out this. Yeah,
I did remember what I wanted to say. So you were talking about the colorful and upbeat and whatever, and I was like, what I would say is like Insomniac's Marvel Spider-Man probably being one of the strong ones I think of for last year.
Yeah, Marvel Spider-Man, and I think that if you go and you look at my Game of the Year list for 2018, it kind of stands out as being happy and joyful, and even that's with Peter Parker's normal stresses and everything else that happens at the end of that game.
Characters die.
Yeah, but that it is kind of an expression of that joyfulness that is not Sony's bread and butter right now. You certainly don't see that with Last of Us. You don't see that with Ghost of Tsushima. I think everybody expects that Insomniac will be showing some Spider-Man 2 whenever the announcement for the PlayStation 5 is. So I think everybody's kind of excited about that. I think our main hope is that Insomniac doesn't only ever make Spider-Man games for the rest of its history, but we'll see on that. Unclear. Yes, when they rename it Web Slingers Inc. or whatever, look out.
They just put a web where the moon is right now.
Well, it's like what else is the Coalition going to make but Gears of War games, right? I mean, it's just, you did it. It's the Coalition. But yeah, that's a concern. But you're absolutely right about Spider-Man. So in terms of everything else, thank you so much for people checking out what is the first live broadcast at THABTO. We wanted to do it this way to check out a few of our buttons, a few things that we could do. Hopefully I can figure out some smoother ways to bring in images. You saw me messing around with it a little bit in the middle of the video, but we did like this format. We do like streaming it on YouTube. It helps get the upload up faster. If you liked it, if you think anybody would be interested in it, if you think anybody would be interested in it in the future, hopefully we can do these a little bit more on an impromptu basis so that Tom and I can get together on the times that we do have, and we can have these kinds of conversations. So thank you, everybody, for participating in the chat, checking it out. We'll work on some of the tech stuff with respect to echoing of my audio, and I'll look into all those various things. Otherwise, thanks to everyone. I don't think I missed any super chats or anything like that. I didn't see any at least go by because I did miss one on a couple of streams that I've done before.
What's a super chat?
Super chat is a little thing that comes up as a colored chat, and they actually contribute money to the channel. To have it be colorized and to have it be popped up into my vision. But I did, the very first time I did a live chat, there was 1,000 people watching or something, and it was going too fast. And some very nice people contributed money, and I completely missed it because I didn't even know that I was supposed to look for it. So that's a super chat. But in any event, I don't think I missed any on this one. Thank you, everybody, for checking it out. It will go up in the THABTO archive on the channel. And hopefully this kind of method will allow us to do it on a more frequent basis. If you have any comments on how this turned out, anything else you'd like to see in terms of formatting or elsewise, please leave a comment. We want to be responsive to what people are looking for to have us discuss. Otherwise, we love chatting with each other. As you can tell, we love video games, and we love hanging out with you all. So thanks again. We're going to end the stream right now. We very much appreciate it. Tom, thanks for joining me, as always.
Yeah, thanks, guys.